Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Rails Board meeting. I am Renee Leyva, President of the Rails Board. I hereby call this meeting to order on Friday, January 24th, 2025 at 1:01 p.m. Emily, could you please call roll?
Yes, Monica Caldecott.
Here.
Jean Carroll.
Here.
Jennifer Cutshall.
Here.
Gwen Gregory. Diane Hollister.
Here.
Jennifer Hovanek.
Here.
Amanda Kowalski.
Here.
Renee Leyva.
Here.
Julie Milivek.
Here.
Emily Porter. Alex Vancina.
Here.
Karen Voidick.
Here.
And Catherine Yanikowski.
Here.
All right, thank you, Emily. Next is a recognition of guests and announcements, and we will take care of public comments at the same time. Let's start here in Burr Ridge with guests.
Monica Harris, Rails.
Sharon Swanson, Rails.
Joe Philippek, Rails.
Barb Miller, Rails. Ann Slaughter, Rails.
Kate Niehoff, Rails.
Layla Heath, Rails.
Dan Bostrom, Rails. Ryan Heppel, Rails.
Rails.
All right, good. Emily, could you please read the names of the guests attending via Zoom?
Sure, we have Biz Lindsay Ryan, Mark Hatch, Jessica Silva, Susanna Jones with the Illinois State Library.
All right, Emily, did we receive any public comments through email or via Zoom?
We did not.
And then are there any other public comments at this time before we proceed? If not, let's move on to the consent agenda, which consists of 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. Adoption of the agenda, the Rails Board minutes of November 25th, 2024, and the Rails Board minutes of November 22nd, 2024 closed session meeting. 5.4 is approval of disbursements November through December 2024. Does anyone wish to move any item from the consent agenda to the regular agenda for further discussion? Thank you. If there are no changes, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Jen Hovanek.
Thanks, Jen.
Julie.
Thanks, Jen and Julie. Emily, can you please call roll?
I will. Emily Porter has joined us as an attendee, but for some reason I cannot make her a panelist, so she is here. Jean Carroll.
Yes.
Jennifer Cutshall.
Yes.
Gwen Gregory.
Yes.
Diane Hollister.
Yes.
Jen Hovanek.
Yes.
Amanda Kowalski.
Yes.
Julie Milivek.
Yes.
Emily Porter.
Yes.
Yay, thank you. Alex Vancina.
Yes.
Karen Voidick.
Yes.
Catherine Yanikowski.
Yes.
Monica Caldecott.
Yes.
And Renee Leyva.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Emily.
Next, we have Sharon Swanson with the financial report. Sharon.
Thank you, Renee. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to beg your indulgence today because I'm going to be a little bit longer-winded since we're going over 2 months of financials, and I have a few notes at the end too to go over. You'll find the financial reports for the month of November and December in your packets. We did not have a meeting during December, so that's why 2 months are being presented. And so this is for the benefit of our soon-to-be newest board member information. So the December 31st on balance of approximately $30 million. I'm going to focus on December. So this is the cash and investment balance as of December. That would fund approximately 25.4 months of budgeted fiscal year 2025 operations. This is our high point of reserves for the year. And this increase from October is due to the December 2nd receipt of that $9.9 million and change, which is our general fund payment for our ABC grant. The federal LSTA portion of our grant, which is approximately $1.9 million, remains outstanding. General fund revenues through December were a little over $13.35 million, and these were approximately $695,000 below budget. This is primarily due to the selection of EBSCO as the vendor for the statewide database program. This was unknown at the time the budget was finalized. This will continue to cause reimbursement revenues and was offsetting e-resources expenditures to be approximately 45% below the full budget amounts. And these under budget revenues were also due to the revision in the LSAP support grant for that open RSA position that was eliminated. This lowered the amount that RSA will pay to Rails for our support costs that we provide to them. We continue to have above budget investment income, of course, and this partially offsets these below budget amounts. Interest rates are declining far less dramatically than we had anticipated in our budget. This is due to the Federal Reserve's 0.5 percentage point interest cut at their September meeting and 2 additional less aggressive 0.25 percentage point cuts at their November and December meetings. We had anticipated them to be far more aggressive than that. And at their December meeting, the Federal Reserve was projecting rate cuts totaling 0.5 percentage point over the course of calendar year 2025. But since then, it sounds like they're shifting a little bit more to even being further conservative. And it sounds like when the results of the meeting come out and the projections come out after they have their meeting this next week, we may be at only 0.25 percentage point cut over this calendar year. So we will be tremendously over budget in this area, which is great news for us. Rails also had unbudgeted special grant revenue for the ongoing development and enhancement of L2 and the World Language Cataloging Services Program. These grant funds were received on November 1st, and they totaled $213,625. Rails's general fund expenditures through December were just a little over 7.77 million, and these were approximately 1.63 million below budget. These were primarily due to those below budget library materials expenditures from that EBSCO group purchase, those offsetting expenditures. In addition, contractual services expenditures were under budget from primarily having received no applications for that first round of cataloging membership grants for libraries to join LSAPs. 3 applications had been anticipated for the fiscal year, with 2 smaller applications of libraries who had expressed interest in joining RSA. But we did not receive those. We're hoping to receive all 3 applications in the second round of grant applications around. In addition, we have planned My Library Is grants for our members. And the grant period is open through February, and the grant awards will be received afterwards. So we have some timing differences between the budget and when those actual grant expenditures will go out. We also have the normal week's delay in receiving and paying our delivery outsourcing vendor for their services. And thank goodness gas prices have been running very favorably industry-wide, and it affects ourselves and the costs that we receive from our delivery outsourcing contractor. Vehicle expenditures were below budget from those gas prices, as well as less of a need for the repairs and maintenance on our fleet of delivery vehicles, because we replaced a little over half of the delivery fleet over the past 12 months. And during November, Rails received and paid for the last Ford Transit that we had on order. So we're getting there with the Ford Transits. We have a couple of box trucks left to receive. The project to rebrand all of the delivery vehicles with our updated logo will be completed this month, and it should bring other vehicle expenditures closer to budget. But it did come in tremendously under what we had planned overall, which is also good news. So additional major cost categories that are under budget include professional services. This is just due to timing differences between budgeted and actual expenditures for several projects. The World Language Cataloging Services translation. The World Language Cataloging Services translation services that we get from an outsourced third party. These have increased to anticipated levels now that we have that temporary position on board who focuses on this particular area. So these expenditures should start to come up and have actually. We also have a planned project for succession planning for Rails and a planned website accessibility audit, and also some planned legal expenditures for some labor relations, because our CBA is coming up for renegotiation again. And also the policy committee work that's expected to continue to the end of the year. And as more and more work in that area gets done, we'll need to have it legally reviewed at that point. Travel is also under budget due to normal delays in receiving reimbursement requests from staff, as well as timing differences for some out-of-state conference travel where dates had not been announced when our budget was finalized. And then the cancellation of the Joint Systems Board meeting that we had planned. We had some expenditures budgeted for that. This was canceled. We were saving in that area. Personnel, you'll notice is also under budget. This is the normal recruitment delays and filling all three of those new positions that we had budgeted for this year. The two temporary positions, one to support the cataloging department and another one to support communications, and the addition of that library resource specialist to increase our capacity and our group purchase for our group purchases for resource sharing. And I did want to mention, and unfortunately this is rather bad news, but it's actually positive. On Black Friday, we were notified by Wintrust that we use for our money market accounts and smart checking accounts that one of our checks to pay one of our group purchase vendors had been found in the possession of someone who is now in law enforcement custody. So we don't know where the check was intercepted after we passed it off into the mail, but it was intercepted at some point. The bank and the bank notified us. We immediately stopped payment on the check. The person did apparently sell a copy of the image before they were arrested. So approximately 1 week later, the bank received two very, very obviously poorly altered versions of checks that the bank immediately flagged and reached out to us about. And of course, we said they aren't legitimate. None of these attempts made it past Wintrust operations staff. They were all flagged by the fraud department. But if they have, we have 3 positive pay services in place to check the payee, to check all the other information on the check, and as well to catch any ACHs that are fraudulent that come through. And in addition to that, internally, my staff regularly every morning checks everything that cleared the previous day, front and back of the check. So we have safeguards in place to keep us from ever losing funds, but I did want to mention that we did have a couple of instances. There have been no additional attempts since these last 2 poorly altered checks were presented. And I did want to give a short rate update since we have received all of our insurance renewal rates and on premium rates for the new calendar year. So our unemployment rate did increase 0.5 percentage point from 1.75% to 2.25%. This is due to the last 3 years of claims history that we have and overall wage increases from added positions and COLA increases, basically. Our IMRF employer contribution rate slightly decreased from the very enviable 0.88% to 0.79%, which is a little unheard of. I imagine our net pension asset will grow when we get our next actuarial additionally, but it's going in a good direction for us. Our health insurance premiums increased 9% for our PPO plan, 7% for our high deductible health plan with HSA, and it decreased 1.5% for our HMO plan that we offer staff. These increases were due to, and I sit on the Limerick board, which is the health insurance cooperative that we're a part of to get this coverage for staff. These increases were due to claims experiences, and the decrease in the HMO plan was due to the decision to move from Aetna as a health insurance carrier over to Blue Cross Blue Shield. So their business plans are a little bit different for their HMO plan, which is the plan that was running at the highest levels of claims. So Aetna runs an open HMO plan. So meaning you don't have to go to a primary care provider to get referrals to a specialist. You can just go directly to a specialist. So Blue Cross Blue Shield controls cost on their HMO plan by operating it as a true HMO, where you have to get those referrals. So that's how they were able to lower the rate for that plan. And the HMO dental plan premiums increased 15.62% due to claims experience. It sounds high, but the overall rate is extremely low for dental. It's not that high cost, so it's not as big of a hit as it sounds like. These increases were anticipated and they were incorporated into our fiscal year 2025 budget, so it wasn't a surprise. Our property and casualty insurance had an overall premium increase of 8.84%. This was negotiated by Lyra, our property and casualty cooperative that we participate in, that Monica sits on the board of. And a portion of this increase is due to the results of the facility appraisals that Lyra had done on their members' behalves. It was at no cost to the Lyra members, and it was to ensure that all cooperative members are insured at the appropriate levels in case a catastrophic event were to happen, and were insured at comparable levels, that the appraisals were done at the same point in time, where costs were at the same point in time for everyone. And I did want to mention, sorry, there were a lot of things that happened during these 2 months. So the E-rate program, I know some of you are familiar with this program. It's a federal program that offers discounts on your telecom bills, discounts for schools and libraries. And we're all, if we have telecom services, paying a universal service fee on our bills. So everyone that has telecom services pays into this fund that they then distribute as discounts through various programs, one of which is E-rate, specifically is for schools and libraries. The program determines your discount rate based on which school district your main location is located in. So discount rates can range from 40% to 80%. 90. I used to be the person for E-rate here. I am now no longer that person. We decided as an organization to end our filing in the E-rate program a couple of years ago due to the cost outweighing the benefits of doing that. And we also had several shifts that we planned in our services, and being locked into contracts for that period of time, it made us less agile as an organization. So we reevaluated after we moved most of our things to the cloud and everything that we've done, and we decided to start filing again. We contracted with an E-rate consultant, and she brought some expertise that we were missing, and immediately jumped on phone calls and meetings with our IT manager, and in conjunction with him, Wesley Smith, they got an immediate reduction in one of our bills for our bandwidth from $1,400 per month to $475 per month, and saved us $11,100 per year already. And has advised me in a couple of areas that may save us additionally, in addition to filing the 18-month long process of paperwork that it takes to get these discounts on our bills and get this reimbursement. So we're seeing, and with that, that's all that I had for you folks. I'm sorry for the call, but are there any questions from anything that I shared?
My only question is in regard to the check fraud, because it seems like mail theft and check fraud is at an all-time high. Are we utilizing ACH as much as possible in making payments?
We are utilizing some ACH, especially for our larger bills that we pay for our like our resource sharing group purchase vendors. We utilize ACH for a lot of those, for our insurance payments that we make. Everything that's larger. This was a smaller payment going to a smaller group purchase vendor. It's in my plans to move to more of an ACH. We need a little infrastructure in place to do that. So.
All right, if there's no further questions or comments, thank you so much, Aaron. We're going to move on to reports. So I do have a report today regarding the executive committee meeting on December 6th to review the nomination submissions of the 6 candidates to fill the vacancy of Vanessa Villarreal on the Rails board. Interviews with 3 of the 6 candidates were held on December 17th and December 19th. The executive committee voted to recommend to the full board that Carolyn Sennett, trustee of the Wilmette Public Library, will be appointed to fill the public library trustee seat, term ending in June 2025. May I have a motion and a second to accept the executive committee recommendation?
Second, Diane.
Thank you, Alex and Diane. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, thank you, Emily. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Welcome, Carolyn.
This is my favorite one, I guess.
Okay, Carolyn, you can come up to the front. And then kindly raise your right hand and recite the oath of office. Is there anywhere specific? Ola.
My job.
You should in the chair. Or, yeah, that works too.
Thank you, Ola.
Look at you or?
No, you can look at Renee.
So raise your right hand, right? And just repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of member of the Board of Directors. Oh, this is longer than I thought, so my apologies. The office of member of the Board of Directors,
the duties of the office of the member of the Board of, sorry,
it's a tongue twister, it's okay. Duties of the office
duties of the office
of member of the Board of Directors
of member of the Board of Directors
of the Reaching Across Illinois Library System,
of the Reaching Across Illinois Library System,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
There you go, Karen. Congratulations.
Thank you. If I sign this afterwards, please.
Before we proceed, we just wanted to acknowledge a first meeting is a lot here at Rails, and we've got a lot going on. And so we wanted to take a moment just to have each of you around the room and on Zoom to introduce yourselves. If you want to just mention if you're in a particular seat and what library you represent, you can say how long you've served on the board, but just a chance to introduce yourself to Carolyn. Jennifer, are you okay to start us around the table?
My name is Jen Hovey and my rail seat is a trustee seat. I serve for the Villa Park Public Library. And by day, my job is I'm the executive director of the LaGrange Public Library.
I'm Karen Voidick. I don't know what seat I serve. I think it's public library seat. Trustee, there you go. I am a member of the Shorewood Troy Public Library Board of Directors. And this is my second term.
Amanda Qualzi, I am the library director for the Frankfurt Public Library District. This is my first term and I am an at-large seat.
Hi, Carolyn. I'm Jenny. I'm a trustee as well, and I'm from the Homewood Public Library District.
I'm Diane Hollister, and I take a trustee position with Rails, and I represent the Bloomington Public Library. I'm a retired librarian from Peoria Public Library and from Bradley University.
Hi, I'm Alex Vancina. I'm on the board of the New Lenox Public Library District, public library trustee seat here at Rails. I'm also a librarian at Helen Plum Library in Lombard.
I'm Gwen Gregory. I am the academic library representative here on the board, and I am the associate dean for collection management at Northern Illinois University Libraries in DeKalb.
No, my name is Renee Leva. I'm here also as a board member. I represent the open at-large seat. I'm the executive director of the Foster Ridge Public Library District. That's it.
I also have an at-large seat. I'm Julie Milivek. I'm the director of the Downers Grove Public Library.
I have Monica Caldecott from Vernon Hills High School, and I am the school library seat on the board, and it's my second term. Glad to know you.
I'm Jean Carroll, and I am here in my capacity as library trustee for the Thomas Ford Memorial Library. I'm in my second term, and I am also a librarian at Indian Prairie Public Library.
Catherine, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Catherine Yanikoski. I'm the special library seat on the board. I work at Engineering Systems Incorporated in Aurora, and this is my second year of my first term, but I have a 2-year term. So my seat is actually up for election this year.
And Emily Porter, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Emily Porter. I am I have an at-large seat here on the Rails board, and I started as a public library director, and now I'm actually a special librarian at OSF. I'm their medical librarian. This is my first year, my first term. Welcome.
And Carolyn, I wanted to offer you a chance just to say hello, and if there's anything you want to share with the group about yourself.
I'm Carolyn Sennett. I am a trustee at the Wilmette Public Library, 2 years into the term, so it's a 4-year term. I was very excited to hear of this opportunity. It's a vacancy for just a few months. My intention, though, is if I enjoy it as much as I believe that I will, I would like to run for the full term. I was very interested in being able to connect with other trustees and library professionals. And really, this is just a great way to learn about Rails and how much it has to offer. I hadn't realized until I started kind of digging into the website and watching some of the meetings, how much Rails can do for all of the libraries across Illinois. So this is a great opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your service with us. We're so pleased to have you on board. I'm sure you can tell this is a very friendly group who are really all available to help with any questions that you have, especially as we get going if there's things. So I know folks will talk to you on their own as well, but welcome. And we're so glad to have you.
All right. Thank you everyone for sharing something of your library, or at least where who you're representing. Let's move on to committee reports. Your packets include the committee reports, obviously. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding their contents?
I would just like to make a comment about the advocacy committee. Thank you for my fellow committee members for carrying on in my absence. My role as our teacher union president makes me busy every single Thursday with negotiations. And so I apologize. I have to take a bit of a hiatus from this awesome group, but I appreciate knowing the good conversations that are continuing. And I also want to thank Renee for connecting me with another Monica, Monica Dombrowski, who is on ILA. And I am very pleased to have been maybe Renee and I were really the go-between. And our state Association of Illinois School Library Educators Advocacy Committee has been helping to write advocacy tips and tricks, and ILA is putting their content on an updated website. And so I'm very pleased that my role here at least helped connect two groups who are both doing great things and just wanted to share each other's content. So,
and I'm thankful for you working with Monica too. There's just so many Monicas in my life.
All the good Monica.
Just surround me everywhere. No, and during our advocacy committee meeting for ILA, she has mentioned you guys have been a delight in so much information. And I have so much support for school librarians and academic libraries. For me, at the end of the day, is you go to the source to making sure that you have the right information. So
yeah,
greatly appreciate everything you've been able to provide.
Well, thank
colleagues.
Thank you. The director or the leader of the IL Advocacy Committee we chose as our school librarian of the year, Gail. Thank you, Myers, because of her great leadership in advocating for school librarians across the state.
Great. Anyone else have any comments or?
I just wanted to say, in addition to what Monica said, thank you, Monica, for being so willing to serve as a chair for the advocacy committee and for letting us know. And I also wanted to welcome Jean Carroll as the new chair of the advocacy committee. So thank you all for your leadership.
All right, let's move on to the Rails monthly report. Monica, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Renee. Well, welcome. I hope you all had some good time with your family and friends over the holidays. Just a few things to share with you all today as part of the Rails report. I hope you had the opportunity to see the Rails 2004 year in review video. We did something a little bit different this year. Instead of doing the Rails Minute for December, we took a look back at the year and some of the things that had happened. So certainly interested in your feedback on that. But it was a nice way to be able to show so many of the things that have been accomplished by our team over the last last year, and we were really pleased to be able to share that with the membership as well. I wanted to make sure you were all aware of a new campaign from the American Library Association. Many of you may have seen it in the ILA alert from yesterday, but it's called Show Up for Our Libraries. It's an advocacy tool that includes a lot of things about how folks can advocate for libraries, both on a state and a federal level. So I encourage you to take a look at that if you haven't already. It's really a great tool. I also wanted to thank you for the conversation that we had here in November about leadership. Our team found it really helpful to hear your perspectives about leadership and leadership training in general as we looked at continuing with that program. We are now at work with a consultant from, I believe it's Vivica Consulting. Her name is Becky Thalman, who's going to meet with a focus group to talk a little bit more about planning for a program that we hope to begin in fiscal year 2026. So your comments were really valuable and helpful to us in shaping that, and we will share more, and Kate will of course share more as we have more to share. I also wanted to thank so many of you for coming to the Illinois Library Association legislative meetups. Those were very successful all over December. We had Rails staff and board members at each of the events across the Rails service area. We also heard more at the most recent Public Policy Committee meeting that the attendance from library attendees was matching pre-COVID numbers. So very pleased to see that. I know our own Gwen Gregory actually organized one of the events, which was also really successful. So thank you all for your participation and being willing to do that. It makes a huge difference. I did want to share that the Illinois State Libraries Advisory Committee meeting was canceled for January, and so we do not expect another meeting with that group until March. In the communication that they sent about that in terms of the funding discussions that we talked about in November, they are really waiting for kind of the state of the state address from Governor Pritzker in February, and then waiting to hear a little bit more about what to expect from federal numbers before they want to come up with a plan. But we expect to continue to discuss more, and I will certainly have more for you at our March meeting after that event. I also wanted to encourage you, if you didn't get a chance to look at it in December, there was a little bit of a highlight of our marketing and communications team's delivery wrapped program. It's really a great way of showing a lot of the statistics about how much work our delivery department does, including all of the ways that they reach our members. And it's a great way to highlight the individual work of those folks who are working in delivery. So if you haven't taken a look at that yet, I definitely would encourage you to do so. We also want you to be aware that our Illinois Libraries Agencies of Impact report, that's the piece that really shows about the return on investment that Illinois libraries bring to their communities, now has a new media kit thanks to our marketing and communications team. There are pieces that are available for social media and posters for your libraries. So if you want to share some of that information in a different format, I encourage you to take a look at that and see if there's something for your library to share. And then finally, we wanted to share with everyone, of course, to be aware that the 2025 Illinois State Libraries annual certification period is now open through March 31st. So everybody take a look at that and make sure that you're keeping up to date on those pieces as well. So I will open it up to any questions anyone has about anything that appears in the report or anything that I just shared with you today.
I skipped saying this from committee reports, but I was glad to see, and maybe it was under resource sharing, that that EBSCO, the Illinois State Library, is working with EBSCO to fulfill the Student Online Privacy Protection Act requirements, because there are many, I know of many schools who would not be able to offer links to the free databases unless they could guarantee to their school board that it followed SOPA. So good to hear that.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Monica. If there are no further questions or comments, let's move on to Barb Miller with the Find More Illinois report. Hi, Barb.
Hello. Hi, I'm Barb Miller. I'm the Consortial Services Supervisor at Rails. Can everyone hear me? Okay, I always want to make sure of that. I'm here just to talk a little bit about Find More Illinois. And Find More Illinois is an interlibrary loan platform that provides access to all participating libraries' holdings in one seamless interface. Libraries of all types and sizes can join regardless of catalog software or whether or not they're participating in a consortium. 32 public libraries made over 100 requests through Find More Illinois last year. That includes 13 of the CCS libraries, 2 school libraries, and there are 3 standalone libraries that made over 1,000 requests last year. Anyone can search the Find More Illinois catalog, which currently has 7.6 million holdings, which is 2.5 million bid records. Both patrons and staff from participating libraries can locate and request materials from other participating libraries across the state to be delivered directly to their home library via Rails delivery. Libraries that joined Find More Illinois receive training and consulting from Rails staff that's scaled to the needs of each individual library. The Find More Illinois pilot was launched in 2018 with 19 libraries that included public, school, academic, and special. Oh, I take that back. There were no special in the pilot. I apologize. 8 of those original 19 are still with us in Find More Illinois. The end of 2024, we had 86 active libraries. 72 were public, 12 were school, 1 academic, 1 special. We had 14,487 transactions. 2025, as we look forward to the new year, we are evaluating our existing fee tiers to find and implement improvements to the formula and general structure. We are looking to develop a pricing schedule that's based on library types, such as e-read uses. So we would be looking at total operating budget for public libraries, FTE for school and academic libraries, and collection expenditures for special libraries. We're investigating strategies to encourage participation of more academic libraries because this would help us achieve greater depth and breadth of collection. We will continue to collaborate with Carly, who has been very helpful. We are going to evaluate and build upon the feedback we received from the academic library focus groups that we held in November. And we are developing an academic lender-only initiative based on input from Carly and the academic libraries. We are continuing to evaluate our onboarding processes. We are looking at changing the reusable Find More Illinois label that the libraries put on items so they don't shelve them in their own collections. Right now it's white with a pale blue logo on it, and we've had many requests that this should be brighter. So we're looking at safety cone orange or something that's neon, still removable. We are going to continue to emphasize the marketing of Find More Illinois to your library patrons. The more your patrons know about it, the more likely they are to use it, which allows libraries to achieve the greatest possible usage of the program. And we are continuing to investigate how to encourage libraries to display the Find More Illinois logo on their webpage. Are there any questions about Find More Illinois? Yes.
Well, I'd just like to say I'm really happy that you're working on the revised fee structure for academic libraries. And so I have been waiting to push it on academic libraries a little bit until that's done. Then I will be able to go out there and, you know, get them, because I've been interested in this since it started and like, you know, before it actually started. So I think it would be great if we can get more academic libraries to participate. Did you find in the focus group that a lot of academic libraries were interested?
Yes. What's interesting is we did it on 2 different days, depending on availability. Day 1, it was, let's share all the things with everybody, which was great. I mean, we actually had one library that's almost an exact quote. The second day, it was more, that's great. What if we want to borrow? Which we hadn't anticipated because most of the contact we've had from academic libraries has been, what are our options for lender only? They just didn't see. But what the interest was largely popular materials that they're not going to be able to spend collection money on, and items for pre-service teaching students. They're looking for Kidlit is really what it comes down to. And we've got lots of that in the public libraries. So we know we want to start with a lender only, but we also know we have to have the new fee structure in place. So if somebody is interested in borrowing, we can explain to them what it would entail and what they actually would be paying.
I'll share a fun story. We have one of many new students who are learning English, and the teacher felt that reading a bilingual book that had tongue twisters would help the student develop some vocabulary. And so I go to Find More Illinois, and thank you, UIC, for sending us the best bilingual book with tongue twisters in English and Spanish. And our student, who's 14 years old, is not a child, but still felt like this book was something that was a good bridge to their new language. So thank you to academic librarians for having such unique materials and being willing to ship it to my high school.
I just want, Barb and Eric and Layla and Ann before her have done such a great job of growing Find More into this amazing process. And we really know that sort of the next big step for Find More could be bringing more academics on board. We've had a lot of the participants who are currently participating in the program say that would be the biggest value add for the program. And then we could potentially even anticipate even more growth from there. So this is a huge priority for us. I know Barb has been working on it really hard. And so it's something we definitely want to see happen.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I will say too that non-returnables from academics would be awesome if that could ever be arranged, because my AP research students need resources that I can't get for them. So.
All right, thank you so much, Barb.
Thank you.
We will now go to Susanna Jones for the report from the State Library.
Hello. Thank you for having me today. So I'm just going to read our little updated report. So the statewide database package with EBSCO, we have just started delving into statistics with that. So we've seen that the Learning Express libraries had 930 people register and create accounts. There have been 3,800 sessions, with most of the resources accessed have been ACT, pre-tests and tutorials. So that's kind of wonderful to see. So that's been between October and December. The article databases, so most of the other databases in the package, have been collectively accessed 1.5 million times in December. So it's being used, and that is wonderful. We're very excited about that. We're hoping to identify a few metrics that we can check every few months, but we don't have those finalized with what exactly we want to be consistently checking. We also plan to generate a list of libraries that have zero statistics, like zero usage, and kind of use that as a rough starting point for who to reach out to and contact and get set up with these wonderful resources. We haven't had as many questions about setup, so hopefully that means that many are already set up and using. So that's good news there. For the grants that we have, the public library per capita and equalization grant, the applications are due Thursday, January 30th. Libraries that have not applied as of 8 a.m. today were sent a reminder message this morning. And we've also shared a list with the systems. The school district library grant awards will be announced soon to 654 school districts. We know there may be some cleanup on district information where we've learned that a school library might not be operating anymore, so we will share that information with both the Rails and IHLS systems as well. The public library construction grants were due January 15th. 17 libraries applied, asking for a total of $1.36 million. For the adult literacy grants, the applications for the FY26, those are due March 15th. However, this year, March 15th falls on a Saturday, so the grant applications will be accepted through the next business day, which is Monday, March 17th. With IMLS, the state library is still closely monitoring the situation at the federal level. We have yet to receive an announcement for the FY25 LSTA award, which Illinois will use in support of services and programs in FY26. And the last thing is a little fun. The State Library is excited to have a presence at the Chicago Auto Show on both Saturdays, February 8th and 15th. We're hosting Chicago educator and author Dwayne Reed in the family-friendly area of the McCormick Place. Reed will engage with the audience with a program, and then he will be signing books to give away. And books are courtesy of the Secretary of State and the Illinois State Library. So if you or your family are planning to attend the auto show, check out the family area. And I think that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you so much, Susanna, for joining us. We hope you have a nice weekend.
Great, thank you.
We're going to move on to new business. As you know, we have accepted the resignation of Anupam Goel as his recent job changes does not allow him to attend Rails meetings. The memo from the executive committee was included in the packet. The committee recommends adding the seat to the May 2025 election so that the Rails membership elects the candidate for that position. Does anyone have any questions? Monica, do you have anything to add?
No, I did just want to thank the executive committee for their work on this, as they did have kind of an unprecedented scenario to identify. They also identified that they'd like us to have a procedural document that really goes through some of these similar situations in case it comes up again where we have multiple openings in the same kind of role at the same time. So I do want to thank them for their leadership on that, and we're working on that to share with them soon as well.
Great. Thank you, Monica. May I have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation of the Rails Executive Committee to add the Public Library Trustee seat due to the vacancy of Anupam Goel to the 2025 Rails Board election?
I move that we recommend that we accept the recommendation of the executive board. Monica? Oh, sorry, Caldecott. Too many Monicas in this room.
Second, Karen.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you, Karen Caldecott. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have Monica and Sharon with the Limerick IGA changes.
Thank you, Renee. I'm just going to briefly say we have participated in Limerick as our health insurance cooperative for some time. We're a founding member for this program. And as Sharon had explained to me this morning, it was formed out of a predecessor system. So this is a program we've been with for some time. Sharon serves on the board, so I'm going to let her lead most of the discussion of the changes in the IGA. But this is just something we wanted to make sure that the board was aware of because it's a change in the intergovernmental agreement. But Sharon, do you want to go through some of the changes that were included?
Absolutely. So the resolutions that were included in your packet have already been signed by Monica and are already in effect as of November 2023, and they've been signed by the rest of the cooperative. The cooperative has approximately 130 members between its two programs that it runs. One is the health insurance program, which the other one is the unemployment insurance group that we do not participate in. So the changes, because this IGA has not been amended for 10 years, were pretty substantial, as you may imagine, over 10 years' time. Part of them were administrative changes, part of them were actual substantive changes. Administrative changes because Limerick no longer has staff that directly work for Limerick. We outsource the administration to Lauterbach and Ahmed as a third party. And of course, the contact address has also changed because we outsource that service. Substantive changes include spelling out late fees for both programs, increased time periods for the claims processing to comply with the cooperatives, carriers' policies, and comply with the law. And just basically formalizing some communications between members and Limerick, as well as making updates to the mandatory meeting requirements. Because previously we had required, Limerick had required, I say we, sorry, Limerick had required that members attend 2 meetings. Now we're requiring that members attend only 1 meeting. So it's lowering these requirements for members because we had so many that were not able to comply. So I wanted to open it up for any questions that anyone may have with these changes.
I don't know that you have the answer to this question, but my question was, why is the amended IGA going out now when the vote was back in November of 2023?
So it took a while to get through the discussion between board and the attorney, to be honest. And then there were some delays on the attorney's end of things with getting everything revised that the board had discussed. And then because I'm a part of the board and I'm very detail oriented, as some of you may or may not know, had some additional changes that I also proposed. So so most of it was at the attorney level, just giving that final approval and okay that things were good.
How many times does Limerick meet?
So Limerick meets once every other month. Meetings have varied though, and we have the ability to call special meetings with board orientation when we got new members on board, or if we need to, like this year, making the big decision of switching carriers, if we need to discuss things in more detail about that.
Okay, good. Does anyone have any questions or comments? No? All right. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon, for serving on the liver.
Yeah, that's a commitment. Yeah. Let's see. Now we have Jessica Silva with a new member request. This is the fun one.
Thank you, Renee.
Oh,
Hello.
Sharon.
We have a request to join Rails from St. Anne's Parish School. St. Anne's is a K-8 Catholic school located in Barrington, Illinois. The school has been open since 1926 and they serve 310 students. The librarian, Fran Peters, first contacted Dan, and then I was able to get her application in the fall. I was able to visit the library in person in December. They have a library assistant, a really great collection, and a nice big library space that's right in the middle of the school. It's also a really interesting sanctuary because it's round. Anyway, and Fran is excited to follow up on grants, deals and discounts, and exploring the possibility of offering e-resources for students and interested in continuing education for her and her assistant. They would make a really great Rails member and they will make a great addition to our school library members. Do you have any questions for me as a board?
Thank you so much, Jessica, with all that hard work, and Dan, as always. If there are no further questions or comments, may I have a motion and a second to approve the St. Anne's Parish School in Barrington to full membership to Rails, with final approval requested from the Illinois State Library?
Move, Diane.
Second, Gwen.
All right, we got that. Diane and Gwen, got it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All. Thank you. All opposed, say no. All right, the motion carries. Thank you again. Now we have the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Review with Ms. Lindsay Ryan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm happy to be with you all today. And frankly, I've been thrilled to work with Rails over the last few years. They've been doing some pretty exciting work. So I'm going to give you a kind of an overview of everything that's been happening, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions. So here is our timeline. We basically started conversations in early 2020. And then, the world changed a little bit from when we started our conversations. And so we were able to start our professional development in the fall of 2020. Simultaneously, we started something we call Climate Team, which is essentially a think tank within institutions where we have representatives from a lot of different departments and areas and perspectives and identities that are thinking about climate and culture and thinking about, what needs to happen in this place for us to truly live our values. And a lot, I think a lot of times the challenge of getting this work really getting traction is time and space. So the Climate Team has been a great opportunity for us to create time and space for these conversations. I did, starting in December of 2020, did some board support work, and I'll go through all of these more specifically. And then we ran a cohort of your member libraries in October 2022 to 23. And then also there was some pretty significant handbook review that happened in 2023. So digging into these areas more specifically in the professional development space, I generally separate things into foundational frameworks and application, right? So a lot of times organizations will try to jump in and just start doing the things without quite understanding the foundational concepts that will affect the decision making. And Rails really took a very thoughtful and intentional approach. And we had offered a significant amount of training for the entire staff. As you all know, there are some kind of structural challenges with delivery and Burridge and other staff. And so really creating something that included everyone so that everybody could have the same baseline knowledge was really important. And after we, had the introductory conversations about all of the topics listed here, we dug into the more application side of things, right? So when we had conversations about relationships, we had conversations about identity and culture and bias and trust and respect and all of these things. And then we needed to try to practice it. So we did interpersonal scenarios. I apologize. I'm getting over influenza A. That's the good reason I'm on Zoom, but I apologize if I cough more. And a lot of times organizations that do this work kind of skip looking at what is the dominant culture of the space and the dominant culture of our country. And so we dug into whiteness and white supremacy, and then really kind of customized to some more work-based scenarios, things that were happening within the organization, and then doing some manager capacity building and some specific sessions for delivery. I just want to say I've worked with a lot of different organizations over the years, and I've worked with very few organizations that covered this much ground in their professional development with their entire staff. And so I really want to commend leadership and the entire staff for their engagement in having what can be difficult conversations, but are really necessary as we try to think about policy and think about climate and culture and think about kind of institutional changes. These foundational frameworks and these skill building sessions are really essential for people to be able to do that work. Simultaneously, the climate team was operating. As I said, we had a group of folks that represented a bunch of different entities. And the first phase of the process was really looking at all the different types of relationships that exist for Rails. So Rails staff to member libraries, Rails staff to different partners, Rails staff to the board, and staff with each other was where we started our conversation and spent significant time kind of digging into a lot of conversation about what was working, what wasn't working, what were ideas people wanted to start, and then taking that work and making a bunch of projects based on those concepts that came up. And so then we spent for the next 2 years working on those projects. So one of the projects was, hey, we should have a learning cohort for our members, and another was thinking about how do we create excuse me, the essential nature. Rails is an interesting organization to do this work because it has both the immediate needs of its own organization and its needs as a role model to so many member libraries. And so some of these things, some of these things were things that were needed to be engaged internally, but also, how do we be responsive to all of these libraries that have been asking questions like, hey, what consultants should we use, right? So the consultant directory was an idea that came out of there, or a partnership rubric to say, like, we have opportunities when we're spending money. Are we partnering people with people at entities that share our values around equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility? So, internal HR practices were a part of that, mentorship for new employees, and then staff engagement, which I think was really critical during this period of the pandemic. I think the folks that got involved on the staff engagement side really were out of the box thinkers and came up with a lot of great ways to have staff feel connected to each other as we transitioned to pretty significant remote work and continued that for longer than I think any of us anticipated. So then since that point in 2023 to the end of last year, we really spent more time on kind of current trends and emerging issues, troubleshooting things that were coming up. And then in this last phase, you know, we are working towards, my goal is to always, is not to be needed by an organization forever. It is about building sustainability. And so with the plan for me to phase away from the work at the end of this, in June, we want to build capacity of the folks on the team to engage in this work and lead the work themselves. All right. In terms of the board support, that has looked different over time. Some of you may have been involved in some of it. You know, initially it was setting up an EDI committee to start having these conversations. As we did so, just like the climate team, that group identified a bunch of things that they wanted to work on. So there were subcommittees created, and then there needed to be support for those subcommittees. One of the big pieces in the earlier phases was trying to think about how do we diversify the representation on library boards. And so we talked, you know, we spent a significant amount of time on creating a board application and a recruitment process to you know, engage a more variety of perspectives. We did some training. I did some training for the board on terminology in this space and working in this space so that their capacity was increased to be able to have the kind of conversations that you need to have as board members. Excuse me. I mentioned earlier the learning cohort. I think that was a project that really had significant impact because we had folks from libraries all over that were participating in that and then being able to take that knowledge and bring it back to their own libraries. We spent a year with monthly sessions, really digging in at a deeper level on the EDIA work and being able to both have that kind of foundational framework baseline, but also then really go deeper and think about all the application pieces that exist in a library. And then, you know, every organization needs to do handbook review, but particularly as you're really trying to think about all the different perspectives and all of the different identities of your staff, looking at the handbook through those lenses and making sure that everybody's needs are met and that we're living out our mission and our values and our strategic plan in that document was important as well. So those were some of the initial pieces. I would say that I think that for the climate team, I'm going to just go back for that one. I think the think tank approach has worked really well at this point. I think it will be something that is necessary to continue to troubleshoot moving forward. I think, you know, we can anticipate that with political change that there can be substantive policy changes that are going to have an impact on both Rails and member libraries that will be important for Rails to be a leader. And this will be a space to brainstorm some of those things. I do think that there's going to need to be more development and accountability for managers moving forward, and being able to implement all of the EDIA work within their specific areas. So continuing the climate team and having them have the capacity to do the work will be really important. Excuse me. I think an ongoing question for the board, and I should say I sit on a school board and have for 6 years. So I am often thinking about what a board member's role is. And I think an ongoing question for your board will be your role in the work moving forward, particularly if there is more challenge or resistance. What does that look like for individual board members? What does that look like for collective board members to support this work? I think, you know, there are opportunities for another cohort, probably another beginner cohort, and maybe an advanced cohort, right? So for the people who have already gone through the learning process, how are we building their knowledge in this next chapter? And there's, you know, always transition in our library spaces and staff turnover, and so there's always folks that are in a place to start the work. So I think that would be something to consider. I think you're going to need to be creative on packaging and how to incorporate EDIA adjacent topics in this new political reality. So thinking about relationships and conflict and other skills that are necessary within every institution, but that can still have some thought and consideration around EDIA as part of those conversations. And of course, handbooks will need to be reviewed repeatedly over time, and especially as there might be changes that happen on the federal level what is that gonna, how is that gonna impact the things in our handbook? I'm gonna give you a second to read this. I think that Rails, having worked with a lot of different organizations, I think there's many assets at Rails and many things that Rails has done well. They have really been intentional about making sure the work is not siloed. It's not one person's responsibility over here. It is something that is shared institutionally at every level of the organization. It's not there about optics, right? That's not the goal, is to just say we did it or for compliance sake. There's a real true authentic commitment to serving all of the people that you need to serve. And so, there was really an attempt to have an agency of voices. And it's a challenge in an organization like Rails. There's not a lot of diversity in terms of representation from certain groups. And so how do you balance making sure folks can speak their truth and share what the experience is for them without tokenizing folks that are in a marginalized position? So I think, that was something that was always at the forefront of the work. I think a lot of organizations get stuck focusing on recruitment, and Rails was always very clear that it has to also be thinking about retention and having strategies around that. And that it wasn't just we're going to do some professional development, but there's been an authentic commitment to change and thinking about policy and practice and sustained learning. And all of these things I think have been incredible assets as we engage. Excuse me. Additionally, a multi-pronged approach, right? A lot of places are only kind of hitting one or two of these things, but really thinking about each type of stakeholder, right? And the reason I'm here talking to you today is that they've very thoughtfully considered, what does this mean to have our board engaged in this work, right? And having them being knowledgeable as they engage in their guidance and governance of us with policy and practice within the institution. So, in terms of the content, examining issues of power and privilege, navigating challenges, I think, all of these things and really having leadership bought in from the beginning. I think a lot of organizations have folks that don't always have power within the institution that are advocating for these things, and then they're bumping up against power, but leadership was engaged throughout the whole process. All right, so some future considerations. We are, I'm sorry, before I go into future considerations, there's just a lot to be proud of at Rails. I'm trying to be respectful of time and not take too much time, but I want to pause there and say, I think they've done incredible work to increase their baseline, and the maintenance, growth, and onboarding will need to continue to be a focus as we go forward, but all of the right components are there. So big kudos to everybody who's been working on this so hard. All right. Future considerations. It is quite possible that some of the pieces of the work that has been engaged in over the last couple of years are going to have federal challenges, and so knowing what is happening and keeping a pulse of what the impact of those things are for Rails and for member libraries is going to be important. I think also this is always true, but particularly in this context, because there is a more concerted effort. If you looked at the New York Times on Friday, I think there were 3 or 4 articles about DEIB work, right? So this is it is a top of mind discussion happening at the national level, and that keeping the commitment to the work, we do want to also think about how we support our staff and help them navigate self-care and avoid burnout. As I mentioned earlier, the departmental EDIA, I think, is a huge part for the future, is really thinking about in each department at Rails, how have we implemented this work? What do we need to do to have more fidelity in the future? Excuse me. Of course, ongoing training. There's still a need to cover topics that we didn't get to. And additionally, there's going to be change in what services look like and what support looks like. What libraries' functions are going to be related to immigrants, right? Those things are going to need ongoing conversation, and also probably look at ongoing review of policy. One of the things that I think we still haven't quite cracked, and it's going to be important to follow whatever the federal and state laws are going to be on this is around recruitment and retention. You know, how there's been a lot of improvement in that area, but how are we continuing this work and making sure that there's more representation within Rails? And then thinking about assessment, you know, how are we making sure that what we're doing is having the impact that we want? And then emerging issues as they arise. Now, this is largely a list that we identified with the climate team, but we're going to need partners outside of the climate team to be successful. And so there's going to need to be some folks within Rails and at member libraries and on the board that are taking on a role within these things. So thinking about why EDIA is still important, right? It's important for all the reasons it was always important. A lot of that has not changed. You know, staff representation and retention is changes the trajectory of organizations, right? That there are both bottom line type issues that are served by having a more innovative and diverse staff, and also the experience of the staff is you know, really important in terms of productivity. Of course, it's not just about bringing people in, but it's making sure that we have the climate and culture for those folks to be successful, that we are being mindful of relationships and navigating conflict, that staff engagement is, you know, at the forefront of what we're doing. There's all sorts of research about why this work increases productivity within organizations. You have it as part of your strategic plan. Excuse me. And, you know, there's been a lot of investment to center this work. And I think, you know, while there still needs to be some work to further embed and operationalize it, you know, this is all stuff that still needs to happen. And, you know, honestly, with where we are, with some of the specific things that might target this work in the years ahead, it's going to make vulnerable people feel more vulnerable, right? There's going to be more people showing up at libraries feeling in need of more support, more resources. So the need to talk about these things and to service folks is not going to go away. It's likely to increase in many places, but the complexities of how to do that are going to be more complicated, and we're going to need to make sure that we have all the lenses we need to do our work well. Excuse me. This, I think, list covers both areas that I think Rails has done well, and some that they need to, and many that you need to maintain, and some that haven't quite been fully realized. And I think this will be some of the work moving forward. In terms of your role, I think, you know, continuing to make sure that there's diverse representation on the board, and diverse, you know, that means a lot of different things. It means a lot that, as you already know, different types of libraries, you know, different identities of the people in the room, right? There's lots of ways that we talk about diversity, but we want to just make sure we're hearing from a wide variety of perspectives. The board's going to need the executive director and staff are going to need support, right? There's going to be more potential threat and resistance that may show up, and making sure they know that you will support the work that they're doing. Excuse me, and also hold them accountable when need be, right? I think the board also plays a critical role in creating, you know, engaging in systems that track progress and making sure that this is all having the impact that you want it to have. And you know, really thinking about where, as board members, and this is a role that I've played a lot on our school board, is like, you know, where can we shield leadership, right? Where can we also take responsibility for the work so that it is not putting our leaders in a high risk situation. But there's already been a centering of this work in mission and in strategic plan. And so, you know, I think you can anticipate that there's going to be challenges for this work ahead. And part of your board role is how to best position everybody to be as successful as possible as you navigate these issues and serve as resources for member libraries that will also be facing these challenges. So I know it's maybe when we decided to do this presentation months ago, we had one idea in mind. Certainly this week it may land differently for different folks, but making sure that we're all kind of thinking about where to go from here. So I want to open it up if there's any questions. Excuse me.
I'd like to ask this a question with the possible challenges that you spoke of, and certainly we have read about them as well. How do you feel like you would start to advise groups like Rails to either stand tall, stand firm, stand respectful with EDIA work and policies and mission versus veiling them in some way. Do the work, but go underground a little bit, I suppose. And I ask because I've been hearing school districts having this conversation too. You know, in my district, we have a director of equity. And are we still going to have that person, or is that person's job title going to change? Maybe their job work isn't going to change, but like what's your take on that idea of stand tall or keep the work going, even if it's veiled?
Yeah, I mean, and this is probably my fourth conversation about that this week. So it's the right question to be asking. You know, I think that here's what I would pay attention to. Because I think it's very difficult in this moment to contingency plan every possible scenario. And you know, you have to look to the folks that are your benchmarks, right? Sure, it's scary to see McDonald's walking back their position on things, right? But McDonald's doesn't do the same thing that Rails does, right? So I think the first part is going to be, excuse me, and I had identified this on the slide, is like we have to pay attention as what is actually happening, right? And for some of these things, the rollout is going to be, okay, this is going to need to go through every department within the government, and then they're going to create rules, and then, you know, they're going to get sued by multiple entities, right? Like there's going to be the you know, the Attorney General of Illinois is going to be suing the federal government about 47 things, right? I mean, that is real about what's coming. So one thing to pay attention to is, excuse me, the distinction between things that are going to get enacted that immediately have the ability to pull federal funding versus things that are going to have a longer on-ramp, right? So, you know, as we were looking at treating of transgender students, right? That's the big question my school board's asking is like, okay, what is this going to be something that's going to go through every department, have its set of rules, have all the counter lawsuits, be not even implemented for 120 days, right? Like what's that going to be? Or are they going to go, anybody that does this is immediately losing federal funding in this way? Different strategy, different response. So part of it is, I think, trying to prioritize, you know, what are our greatest concerns? What is the way we feel they are under threat, and what is the timeline for that threat? And then being able to identify what our options are, like what are our protections, right? Are we the big fish that they're going after in this situation, or are we collateral damage, or are we like, it's not going to really touch us? Like those are all things that I don't think any of us can know in this moment, right? Like I called a friend who's pretty high up in government to ask something yesterday, assuming they would tell me what they knew, their position, and they were like, we don't know yet either, right? So I think this is the challenge right now, is that there's a lot happening and everybody's trying to get a sense. I don't think it's like scrub your website, take everything off right now. I think we have to see what the consequences can be, and then we're going to have to make some tough decisions about where are the non-negotiables and where are the adjustment, right? Like, so my wife and I have been together for 26 years. I remember the fight for civil unions. I didn't want a civil union. I wanted a marriage, right? But it was prudent for us to make that political adjustment at the time, right? So there may need to be some considerations of either language or approach or packaging that are important. But I don't think anybody has the answers just yet on what those need to be.
I liked your term, EDI adjacent. And I think it's sometimes a good way to say it, right? It's just how people work together, and that's true of all ways. So sometimes good work can continue even if it is packaged differently. And I also appreciate your mentioning that Rails is a good role model. And
yeah, and I think
to be a good role model. So
yeah, my suggestion would be, because so many libraries are looking to you, I would be hesitant to make any substantive change until you are really clear about what the need is and what the consequences would be. Because it's going to be much harder for a smaller library to fight the good fight when Rails has completely, like there's compromising and there's compromised, and you're going to have to figure out where you can live with that repackaging and where you absolutely need to take the stand and take the hit. And I think it's hard to know exactly what those stances are going to need to be at the moment.
We're just gonna make sure we purchase large external hard drives, just all the files at Ryan's house. Does anyone have any other comments, concerns, questions? Great. Thank you so much for working with Rails on this. Obviously it's vital. It's important. We still believe in it, especially when you stated sustainable. There's always goals that we really want to go for, but we just can't do it. But when it's something that's achievable and we can do every year, I think on a daily basis too, that'd be great. Again, thank you. And then lastly, feel better. I feel so bad.
Sorry.
I also just went through the flu, so I feel you right now.
It's terrible. This
Get
one is
better.
really rough.
I know. I'm so sorry. But thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
just want to add one more thing. The people who always needed us to do this work haven't left. They're still there. And they're only likely to be in a worse position in the immediate future, right? And so if that was your motivation, that those needs haven't changed, and people feel less safe and more scared. And so whatever you can do to take your stand is going to be really important.
I just want to thank you, Biz, for the leadership that you've taken and how much learning we have had from you. I know our team really appreciates the guidance that you have given us, and I know you highlighted a lot of the work that's been done here. You have led so much of that, and we really appreciate it. I also want to call out the folks in this room who have worked so hard on these, including Diane Hollister, who chaired our committee and really made that initiative come forward from the board, Joe Philippak, who's led a lot of these efforts, including a lot of our continuing education and training, and many of our staff who have worked on that, and also this board, who have been truly leaders in both updating your bylaws, doing other things towards this work. I really appreciate the leadership position that you have taken, and I know that this was the strategic direction that our membership asked for. So we appreciate your work. Thank you all.
It has been my pleasure.
Thank you so much. And you have a good weekend.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Okay, next we have board member reports. This is the opportunity for board members to share what is happening in their libraries. We're going to start to my left. So does anyone have anything?
Me again? Okay, yes, I'm looking it up though to make sure that I say the right thing. So a very exciting thing for Villa Park is we have been chosen as a partner site to work with the community research on climate and urban science. And we will be having a weather station installed on the top of our library that will be working in conjunction with Argonne National Laboratory.
That is awesome.
Yeah, isn't that cool? So it'll be really interesting to see how that goes, and be able to that group researches the impact of extreme climate change in like urban city kind of well, we're a village, but settings. So it's not just the ice caps, it's what's happening actually in neighborhoods. So it'll be interesting.
That also can guarantee you Tom Skilling.
I heard he hangs out in Hawaii a lot now though, and I can't blame him for that. He never will, right? But that's it.
Bloomington Public Library is up. It's the finalist for the McLean County. It's a grant from McLean County Chamber of Commerce. So we're one of the 5 finalists for nonprofit. And this is a thrill. They're going to have a gala on the 8th of February. And I'm going with Jeannie and a colleague as well. And so we're on pins and needles. Are we going to get this grant? And I think about us, but I've got my fingers crossed because of our renovation and expansion. I think that looks, in our favor.
It is gorgeous. It
Oh,
is so
thank you.
impressive.
Thank you so much. Yes. And so one of the things I found out, thank heaven we had a meeting the other day because they said it's going to be fancy. So I have to dig my dress out.
Yeah,
of
what are you
my-
wearing?
My funeral, wedding, graduation, old standby. But I'm really excited for the library. And the other thing too, on my way over to the board meeting the other day, I was listening to the radio and I heard the candidates for mayor, and boy, are they getting mileage out of our library.
They're
Because
taking
it's-
credit.
Yes. Yes. Getting a lot of positive mileage out of it. So I hope that speaks well for what might happen on the 8th. So thank you.
Our school library has been closed for 2 days, yesterday and today, to host our history fair. Every junior in the school does a research project under the National History Day umbrella. And many museum projects, websites, documentaries, research papers. And today we were happy to have U.S. Representative Brad Schneider visit our school, and he wanted to talk to any adults. He just only wanted to talk to the students. I thought that was super cool. So.
So the Northern Illinois University Libraries was designated as a winner of the Library Excellence in Access and Diversity Award this year, which is like an academic library thing. So we're proud of that.
And congratulations.
I have something I kind of wrote down because I wanted to express myself the best I could. I represent Homewood and we are a unionized library. And yesterday I learned that the Illinois Youth Services Institute, ILA, is hosting that event, which is a major event at a venue, the hotel. It's actually in Bloomington, Normal.
At the Marriott?
Yes, and the workers there are on
On
strike.
And I was going to say, that's why we didn't have very many politicos show up that day, because they didn't want to cross the picket line.
Well, okay, I don't want to cross it either. And I wanted to say, librarians have long advocated for marginalized and underrepresented groups. And requiring these event attendees to cross the picket line, I feel undermines our shared professional values. Striking workers deserve our solidarity, and organizations like ILA have the resources to amplify their voices. And by choosing to support a business engaged in a labor dispute like this, I see ILA sending a troubling message that their financial and logistical considerations are outweighing their commitment to equity. So I would hope that moving forward, ILA would strive to make better choices to ensure that libraries and librarians, that we're on the right side of history, and not just in our words, but in our actions. About this guy, so I was trying to tone it down, but
As a union president, happy to.
Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else have anything else to add? All right. Thank you again. Our next board meeting will be on Friday, February 28th, 2025. Included on the February agenda will be an Explore More Illinois update with Jessica Barnes, and the board development subject is to be determined. Thank you all for your attendance. I hope you all have a really nice weekend with your friends and family. I adjourn this meeting at 2:29 p.m. Have a great day.